You're listening to the Codependent Millennial Podcast with Sophie Shilo, episode 17, my interview with Rebecca Gwozdziewycz. I am so excited to bring you this interview today. Rebecca is a fellow coach and a dear friend of mine. I absolutely love her. And today in our conversation, you'll hear us discuss privilege, gratitude, power, the dangers of imposing a victim identity onto other people, how to live a meaningful life without resenting your gifts, and so much more. Be sure to visit Rebecca's website at lonelynomore.online to learn more about her and the amazing work that she does helping lonely people build lasting friendships. I highly recommend that you read the story on the homepage of her site. It is so touching and so inspiring. But that's just everything that Rebecca is. So enjoy. Here's my talk with Rebecca Gwozdziewycz. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who is Rebecca and how did she get here?
Yes. So the number one question that I get is how to say my last name.
Yes.
So I'll just save everybody some drama with that. It's Gwozdziewycz.
Gwozdziewycz.
Gwozdziewycz, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
Is that Czech?
Polish.
Polish. Oh my God, I'm Polish.
Hello.
Oh, twins. That's so cool.
Yeah, and so how did I get here? I was certified as a coach in 2016. I work for a law firm based out of Eugene, Oregon, and I can't call myself a coach, but I teach coaching principles to the clients. Basically, I help them process what they went through and then teach them how their thinking creates their results. So it's a nice bonus that they get with working with a law firm.
Mm.
And then
that's an incredible extra service.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's wonderful. The clients have such better outcomes because they're not just left out to deal with developing a new life after they come to us.
Yeah.
So we get them all set up so that when whatever they came to us about is dealt with, they can go out and create the life of their dreams.
Wow.
It's very nice. And so I came to coaching at a crisis point in my life, and I love your audience. They're very near and dear to my heart.
Oh, good.
The first self-help book that I read that really sent me on this learning how to manage my mind journey was Codependent No More.
I'm going to start crying. Oh,
why?
That's what, because it's just the best book ever. And that's fantastic that it was your first.
Yeah. That was my first book that I felt like, oh my God, somebody understands me.
Yeah.
Like this is something that I can change.
Yep.
Felt so understood. I was in the military for 14 years. When I got out, I got married. I got my dream job. I was working at Boeing doing human resources. And I ended up, I had this job. It was my dream job. I had marriage. I was living in a great neighborhood. And then I was getting a divorce, and then my work was incredibly stressful, and I ended up having a PTSD episode at work. And I had to take 2 months off of work, and I was in a partial hospitalization program, and it was about a week before I was supposed to go back to work. And I was on the phone with my mom, and I said, I can't go back. I don't feel any better. There's no way that I can go back and perform my job. And my mom said, have you heard of life coaching? And I hadn't. I said no. And she said, well, a friend of mine is working with a life coach and she's doing really well. Maybe you should check that out. So I got off the phone and I went on iTunes and I just put in life coach, and the life coach school came up.
Wow.
And so this is within 4 episodes of listening to that that podcast, I felt better than 8 years of therapy.
I have so many chills all over my body right now.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me what was, go on.
Oh, and so then basically, Brooke was you could only work with her to by being through certification. Mm-hmm. So an opportunity came up to get certified and I was like, yes. And I quit my job and I went, and then that was it.
Wow. So tell me, because a lot of people come to me asking about the difference between coaching and therapy. And I have my own variations on the answer to that, but I want to hear your perspective.
For me, it was therapy focused very much on the past and what had happened. And I was just so tired of talking about what happened, me, myself. And then I found coaching, and coaching was like, okay, you have a past and that's fine. And it can be all perfect and we can move forward. And it gives you more, I felt like it gave me more control over my future.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. The way I look at it too, I mean, it's very similar to that perspective, but it's also like my experiences in therapy were sort of like, how are we going to deal with this awful thing that happened to you? Versus how are we going to see everything as a perfect, incomprehensibly well orchestrated, well-designed method for getting you the perfect life you've always wanted. How could this all have been perfect? Which, of course, to me at the time, having everything so fresh was a very threatening, abrasive perspective. I was like, fuck you. Mm-hmm. But now with some distance, I'm like, oh my God, I hate saying this. It still pisses me off a little bit to say it, but everything I went through, I'm grateful for. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That is, for me, that was the difference one of the big differences between therapy and coaching.
Yeah. I remember when I was at coach training, Brooke, our teacher, when I told her the awful thing that happened to me, okay, she was like, so what? Mm-hmm. And that was incredibly jarring. I was like, excuse me? Yeah. I'm sorry, didn't you just hear what I said to you? Yeah. But the point is I didn't need anybody else to feel bad for me any longer. There are plenty of people that I can tell my story to. They would feel bad for me. I didn't need any more of those people. I needed people that were like, and you can move forward.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not going to sit in this swamp with you anymore. Mm-hmm. We're going to get the fuck out and start walking up this mountain. Okay. Mm-hmm. I know your legs are sore because you've been in a swamp for 6 years, but come on. Yes. Okay, good. So today I want to talk, so you actually coached me a week or so ago about prosperity, about privilege, about gratitude, about guilt and shame, all of this. And it was such a mind-blowing experience. It was so good, such a great session. So I wanted to have you on to talk about this. I wanted to talk about prosperity, money, gratitude, guilt, shame, comfort, privilege, all of it. Within the context of codependency, and within any context you want to bring to the conversation, really. So have you struggled with these things that I just mentioned? And if so, in what ways?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely I've struggled with these things.
You're like, I'm a human woman on earth.
Okay.
Yes.
So chapter 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even in the lens of codependency, because I realized I had some codependency, a lot of those things that you're talking about, I've had to work on within relationships. Even if you think about the concept of wealth within a relationship, and when we talk about shame, and codependency, I think that's something that can come up very often. I struggled for a very long time with scarcity, right? Like if you could put like all those things into a bundle, right?
Yeah.
Like I think it's a lot of scarcity.
Yeah.
And I definitely struggled with this in my romantic life. I struggle with it in my friendships. As far as like when I realized that I was codependent, it was really a lot about my friendships. And I had to stop and audit all the relationships in my life and see, right, where was I depriving myself and like shaming myself and not letting myself have abundance.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've definitely struggled with these things, and they still will crop up.
Yeah.
They'll still crop up. I mean, privilege is the one I would say I haven't struggled with the most, but I have been thinking about it a lot. Because after I coached you, I literally coached 5 other people on it.
Wow.
It came up so much from my clients. And it was so interesting to see that thread coming out this week in everything that everybody was going through. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was definitely shame. Shame is the big one.
So in what ways have you been able to work around that shame? What does your relationship with shame look like now? How does that affect your life?
So my relationship now with shame is that whenever I feel shame or I have shameful thoughts, I realize that that is something that I need to put light on. And
because of course it thrives in the darkness.
Yes. It grows in a dark room.
Yep.
So when I recognize that I have shame, I go back and I try to ask myself questions to learn the lesson that it's trying to teach me, and then put something out into the world that can, is like weed killer, right?
Yeah.
A weed killer. But I don't have like shame anymore, which is like shame about my shame.
Yes. Oh my God.
I don't have shame anymore. I'm just like, oh, that's interesting that you're feeling shame over this. What is it trying to teach you? Where can you like grow from this? And how can you help others with it?
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's a great antidote to it too.
Mm-hmm.
When you kind of engage with it instead of run from it, because meeting it head on is really what disintegrates it and what can make it so much less powerful and so much less daunting.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So I want to ask you also about the clients that you coached this week around privilege. What were some of the issues they brought up, and how did you work through them?
They all were having financial guilt. Mm-hmm. So they all had, none of them are struggling with money. They're not going to struggle with money. They could literally not work for a year and not change their lifestyle. And one of the people in particular had went out and bought what she considered to be an egregious amount of luxury grocery items.
Yeah.
And
are you talking about me?
No, I'm not even talking about you.
That's crazy.
No, this is, I think I texted you about this client. This client had bought $100 worth of Delmonico steaks.
Yes, you did tell me about her. Yeah.
And she had so much shame and guilt about the purchasing of these steaks. Mm-hmm. And she was crying. And what we did was, we looked at the story about why she is having shame why she thinks she shouldn't have the stakes. Like, why is it better to choose this painful story about having what you have than just letting yourself have it?
Yeah, that's huge. And that was one of the shifts you helped me make, of recognizing that I was choosing a story. And there are so many viewpoints that I have that I don't question, because it's not necessarily a natural human activity to just go around every day, all day, questioning all of your thoughts. But as coaches, that's what we do now. Great. Awesome. But you really helped me see what stories I was carrying around, the pain that they were causing me, and that I could choose different thoughts. And it's so ironic, because of course that's what I help clients do all day, every day. But applying it to yourself is a totally different wheelhouse. Like, it's just a different game.
Yes, exactly. It's totally like this happens to me like every day, right? I call my friend and I'm like, this thing is happening. That's obviously the circumstance.
Yeah.
And they'll go, no,
No,
that's not.
So something I struggle with as a recovering codependent is enjoying my life, knowing that there is so much suffering out there in the world. We talked about this.
Right.
It is often immobilizing. Thank God, much less so than it has been in the past. And thank God also I've harnessed that energy and I've done some amazing things with it. But the guilt and shame of thinking that it is wrong for me to have peace and joy and a warm bed when so many others don't, like I said, it is crushing sometimes. What is your perspective on all of that?
Well, I think like right now, this is pretty much like the Super Bowl for codependency, right? Like, there's so much that can be done. There's so many ways that you can just wear yourself out. Giving.
Yeah.
In a
yeah, we
situation.
talked about like a kid in a candy store, like a codependency candy store.
Right. Exactly. And I guess like my perspective on the shame and the guilt that people can have right now, right, is that if you want to be truly helpful, that doesn't come from shame and guilt. That doesn't come from victimizing people with our thoughts.
Yeah.
Really being a source for anyone, including ourselves, we have to start at home. Like, if you want suffering to end, you have to start with yourself.
Yeah.
And when we are looking at all of the suffering and we're immobilized, we are adding to the suffering. If you want to think, we're adding to that collective conscious.
Yeah.
And that can be the exact result we are fighting against, right?
Yeah.
And so it's so easy to go there, because I think we're taught that, you see something that makes you feel or have like saddening thoughts, suffering thoughts. And what we are supposed to do is internalize that. Like today I was thinking about those commercials for the animal shelters with Sarah McLachlan.
Yes.
Right? And so they give you these images, there's this song and there's this dialogue, and it's to provoke you to support the animals, right? But there's also a school of thought where you can look at that and you just feel so sad and immobilized, and it's the exact opposite of what we want to happen, what we want in the world. And so my perspective on it is, if you see or or you think these things that make you feel like you too are suffering, there's an opportunity for you to go back in and have some grace with yourself, and also grace with who you are thinking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love. What were you gonna say?
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I love what you said about not victimizing other people against their own will. I mean, I see that all the time, and I've been guilty of that many, many times, of really projecting this identity of victim onto people who didn't identify as victims themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about nonprofit work.
Yes.
There's so much incredible work being done, but there is also a tendency for people to victimize the people being helped or supported without any regard to how they actually perceive themselves in the circumstance that they're going through.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think there's anything more important than, self-determination in those spaces. Really letting the people who you profess to care about direct their healing or direct their, evolution or development. It's just, they have to be the ones directing that. You can't impose that upon them. And you certainly shouldn't be projecting an identity of victim onto them.
Yeah. It reminds me, I used to work with homeless veterans and on a volunteer basis, and we would set up tents in Philadelphia in the summertime, and they could come and get free medical care and meals. And there was another part of the tent where you could go and check and see if you were eligible for any financial benefits. And the majority of them wouldn't go and check. And so I asked a couple of them, like, why don't you want to go and see if you can get like financial assistance? Why don't you see if you are eligible for disability? And they said, I'm choosing this lifestyle. I don't want that money from them. This is how I live my life. And that was really eye-opening for me because I was looking at them as victims.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that everybody makes that choice consciously, but I think it doesn't help anybody to look at anyone and say, oh, poor them. If we look at them as potential and we look at them as potential and possibility, we're gonna give from such a cleaner place if we give anything at all. Even if it's just the thoughts that we're giving ourselves, so much cleaner than if we hand like anything to them from a place of, oh, poor you.
Yeah, and that leads directly into the next question I wanted to ask, which is, I mean, how do you move from thinking thoughts of guilt and victimization of yourself or of other people to thoughts of service and empowerment and possibility?
I think there's so much power in starting where you are and accepting that. If you're having guilty thoughts, shameful thoughts, there's nothing wrong with that. Guilt and shame are human emotions. They were given to us by whatever you believe gave us what we are, right? And just spending time with that feeling and that thought and realizing that it doesn't mean anything has gone wrong is so, so powerful. And then when we move forward, go in a step that's like manageable for you. So some people can very easily switch their thoughts from thoughts of guilt to maybe thoughts of acceptance. If that's not working for you, you can go from thoughts of guilt to thoughts of, anger or neutrality. I think you can, if you're stuck, like guilt is one of those feelings that you really get stuck in moving to anger might be the perfect emotion for you because you can create from anger.
Yeah.
You know, like the same thing with shame. Shame hides.
Yes.
Shame avoids. And if you can maybe get to like neutral, what are you going to create?
There's more possibility there than in shame. Shame eliminates all possibilities, closes every door. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the same with suffering too. Like suffering really, there's just no momentum in it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that's what I find with myself is like, okay, I'm here, I'm in shame. Let's explore it. Nothing's gone wrong. Let's feel it. What's the next best step for me to get me taking just any action?
Yeah. Yeah. I love thinking that nothing has gone wrong when I'm feeling guilt and shame. And I spent a long time, I spent years sort of refusing to believe in God and then just like hating God a whole lot. And then slowly, I was just so tired and in pain that I had no choice but to try and rely on God because I had nothing left. And I was like, this is literally a last resort. And when I find myself arguing with the reality of, of my privilege just because of my skin color, or my privilege because of what I'm choosing to do with my life, my privilege because of my status in society, all of that, when I hate that about myself, and when I argue with God about that, I'm literally just telling God that I don't trust him and that he did a shitty job. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just kind of like, God, you got this backwards. You did this wrong. This should have been done a different way. And then when I realize that that's essentially what I'm doing, I can check myself and get into this more empowered place of, God gave me innumerable gifts. What am I going to do with it? God didn't just hand them to me and is going to take care of making sure that I do with those gifts beautiful things in the world. I'm alive now. I'm on earth. It's go time. How am I going to use these?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, how am I going to honor God by using his gifts well instead of bitching about them?
Yeah.
And I still spend a lot of time bitching about them. I lament the fact that there are huge racial disparities in the world and in the US. I spend so much time being so furious about that, but that doesn't get me anywhere. So being grateful for the power that I do have and the ability that I do have to fight for anything in the world and to advocate for people in the world in the ways that I do because of the things God gave me, that is a more empowering place to live.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like, I read the Tao Te Ching every day. And, that talks a lot about the universe. And I think for me, it's like an abbreviated Bible. And when you think about what a miracle it is that you were created, like how many things had to happen for you to be here, for you to be where you're at right now. And it's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. Your feelings aren't a mistake. Where you're at right now isn't a mistake. Like everything is working for us to build up to whatever it is that we're going to create. And if you give up a little bit of that control, right? Like I know codependence. Hello, hi, I'm Rebecca, right?
Yeah.
We love control.
Yes.
And if we can just give up a little bit of that, how much comes rushing in? How much more we get back to say, like, yes, this is true.
Yeah.
This is what's out there for you.
I think that is so beautiful. That might be a great way to summarize the past decade of my life, is like, will you give up an inch of control in order to get a mile of freedom?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes or no? Ball's in your court. Like, up to you.
Yeah.
That's
and it's amazing. It's really interesting, right? Like the minute, like maybe not the minute, but the second that you're like, okay, what's out there, and you let the possibility be there, you can look at everything and think about everything differently.
Completely. Yeah. Yes. And it just, again, it goes to show that a shift in perspective is all that's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in your mind.
Yeah.
That's everything.
I was thinking today about, I'm very, I don't know what the word is. I want to say I'm very fortunate. I have friends from all over the world. I have friends in every different economic bracket that you can think of. And I was just thinking about our conversation this afternoon and what we would possibly talk about. And I was thinking about the very, very wealthy people that I know. And then I was thinking about the people that are economically not equal.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I was like, okay, so the very, very wealthy people that I know, they have a spectrum of emotions too. Like I have happy friends, depressed friends in that bracket, right? And then I think about the people that I know that are not as wealthy, right? And they have happy, like there's happy like sex, and then there's happy or unhappy people in that group too. And it's like the only thing that separates any of us is our perspective and our thinking. And like if you think of wealth as financial wealth, or maybe like you think of wealth as like how many friends you have or your family, all that separates us from wealth is our perspective.
Yep. That's amazing. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on. This was such an enlightening conversation. I love talking with you, especially about this topic. I feel like this is just like your thing. So if people want to keep in touch or learn more about you, where can they find you?
Sure. So you can find me. I'm actually opening a private practice.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm at lonelynomore.online.
Nice.
And my business name is an homage to Codependent No More.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. So over at Lonely No More, I help people find and form friendships, lonely people.
I love that so much. All right. So everyone go over to lonelynomore.online. All right, Rebecca, thank you so much. Have an amazing day.
You too. It was so good seeing you.
You too, babe.
And that's a wrap. I hope you loved the conversation I had with Rebecca. Once again, visit her at lonelynomore.online to learn about how she can help you build lasting friendships. I can say from personal experience that Rebecca's coaching is extremely impactful. I still am implementing tools that I learned from her on a daily basis. On the next episode of the Codependent Millennial podcast, I'll be answering the questions that I receive most commonly from clients and followers on Instagram. So stay tuned for that. And if you'd like to submit a question, just find me on Instagram at Codependent Millennial and submit a question there. Until next time, have a beautiful week. Thank you so much for being an amazing listener of the Codependent Millennial podcast. If our conversation today resonated with you and you want to learn more about how to release your guilt and shame so that you can live your most impactful, empowered life, I want to invite you to join my 3-month one-on-one coaching program. In this program, you'll work directly with me to gain the self-love, self-respect, and self-confidence you need in order to let go of your codependent tendencies and up-level every area of your life. Schedule a free call with me today to talk about what's possible for you and to see if you'd be a good fit for the program. Just visit codependentmillennial.com/work with me, click the button that says click here to schedule your free session, and claim your spot there. See you soon.